Hey everyone, it's Tyler from Dread Central, and I am here with my friend Jeffrey Reddick. Hey Jeffrey,
Hey, how are you, brother?
doing well. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, of course.
Given that it's Pride Month, we're here to talk a little bit about the intersection of the LGBTQ plus community and the horror community. I think that I can't think of really anyone better to speak to the intersection than you, my friend. Very excited to pick your brain a bit.
Oh, it's ready to be picked.
Wonderful. Jeffrey, I've often felt like there are certain parallels between the LGBTQ community and the horror community in the sense that a lot of queer people have a history of past trauma and maybe a lack of acceptance, either stemming from family or school or both. And I think that bonds us together as, gay men, gay women, gay individuals. Uh, Similarly, I think of the horror fan base as a community of misfits that have come together and bonded over a shared experience. Can you speak to some of the ways being a member of both groups has shaped your identity?
Yeah, I mean, I've always known that I was gay before I had words for it, and I think the processing of it when you're younger was that, when boys started talking about how they felt about girls, you realize like that's not how you felt about them, and that's how you felt about boys, and that's when you started kind of putting the label to it, even though growing up you've heard, like, whether it's at school or church or within your own family, just horrible damaging things. But I think with horror, the correlation there, I was a horror fan starting around the age of 13. I always found them fascinating, but I got really into them about 12, 13, 14, with a group of friends of mine. And part of it was because it was taboo. Everybody's like, how can you watch that stuff? And, this isn't for you. But a lot of it was identifying. This was something I processed a little later on, is really identifying with kind of the final girl in the series, because the final girl was always, which I think goes back to what you said about the genre crowd kind of being geeks in an awesome, cool way. As the final girl was somebody who was kind of invisible to the rest of the group. She kind of didn't stand out. She was there, but she wasn't the prettiest or the most popular. And she was the one who kind of went from being kind of taken, just kind of in the background, kind of a wallflower, who ended up saving the day. And I think that was a kind of a trope that's, that's why a lot of people, no matter whether you're gay or straight or anything, like, I think relate to the genre a lot. It's also a place, I think, where you can exercise a lot of your fears, your real life fears and traumas. Like, most of the horror makers that I know, filmmakers, most of the fans that I know are like literally the nicest, most gentle people that I've ever met in my life. And I think that's in part because of what drew us to the genre to begin with, is like the feeling that, we kind of weren't necessarily the most popular. We all feel that. Even the most popular people feel like they're the most popular, not the most popular. It's a weird thing, but when you're growing up, there's definitely a hierarchy, especially in schools and in families, about what's expected of you. So I think the idea that we all felt like we weren't quite enough is a very human condition, but I think it's especially pronounced, in the gay community, where you're told, from the time that you remember hearing about gay people, that there was something wrong with you, that was broken and would never be happy. So
Certainly. I think that something you said kind of piqued my curiosity, and that was about identifying with the final girl. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think Kevin Williamson said that there was queer coding in Scream in regards to what LGBTQ people face growing up, and he had similarly, if I hope I'm not taking it out of context or misconstruing what he said, but I think he'd said in so many words that he also identified with the final girl. And so there was kind of some subtext in Scream that sort of pertained to his experience and the shared queer experience growing up, feeling different, feeling like you don't fit in. And so that's really interesting to, hear you as another screenwriter that I have the utmost respect for, kind of coming from a similar place.
I think, yeah, I shouldn't say we all do, but, we all bring our personal experiences to writing. And I think that kind of tells the stories that we're drawn to, whether we want to kind of not necessarily deal with our past by like doing autobiographical stuff, but whether we put ourselves, we just put a lot of ourselves in our characters. And I think that, yeah, there's, and especially, back when Scream was coming out, we weren't where we are today, where you could, just put a gay character in a film. It had to, you had to put like subtext in there, but a lot of that subtext comes from just the creative process of expressing yourself. Like, I tell this kind of advice for all writers, is like the stuff that you've been through and the lens that you view the world through is your voice. Like that's the one thing that makes you unique. No one in the world thinks like you do, has had the same experiences you do, and filters everything through the same filter that you do. So that's kind of where each one of us is so unique and special. And sometimes that, bonds us, especially as gay people. Like we're growing up looking for nuggets in the horror, especially in the horror genre. I mean, it used to just be like, you'd have that flamboyant guy that got killed. And then maybe two women who weren't even lesbians just making out to turn the guys on. And that was it. Or the very effeminate, murderer. Like, so there wasn't a lot to really cling on to. A lot of it was so coded, and we're now getting to the point where it's very optimistic to see more representation, but now we're also getting kind of the huge expected, cultural backlash of, you guys are grooming kids and just all the bullshit that I heard growing up. It's like, okay, you guys are coming back with all the crazy shit again. So wanting us back in the closet, or,
Anytime that there's progress, there's going to be resistance. I think
yeah.
it's just unfortunately a fact of life, but it's still pretty cool that we are making progress, that we are seeing better representation, and that we don't have to grasp on to subtext, or sometimes not even subtext. Sometimes I think that, we tend to latch on to something just because, well, like the final girl trope, for example, that oftentimes wasn't written as queer coded, but we would perhaps, identify with it in some way because that was all we had.
Yeah.
And, to see Gen Z maybe growing up with more positive representation is really exciting, because it means that we are making progress. Even if people are digging their heels in and, saying not in my America, it's still happening. And that's pretty incredible. But piggybacking off of something you said before about not always being able to get queer themes or a queer character into a film, have you ever advocated for the inclusion of either a queer character, or B, a POC character in one of your projects, and been shut down by the powers that be, studio, financiers, etc.?
Yeah, all the time. I laugh about it because it's all you can kind of do at some point, or you just get really upset. This goes back to and again, it's sometimes I try to explain the need for diversity to people, because up until maybe 15 years ago, if even that recent, the default for every character was a white straight actor or actress. Like it was just the default. Like you would send out a casting notice specifically asking for like diversity, and you'd still get all white actors and actresses. And so there became this whole mantra that, well, it should be whoever's the most qualified. And what they don't know is, because I worked at a studio for 11 years, what they don't know is, and also outside of the studio I've been producing, but what they don't know, all the behind the scenes stuff that goes on. And I have had many occasions where the most qualified actor or actress by far was an actor or an actress of color. By far, everybody from the development executives to everybody's like, this is the best person. But then it would be like, but America's not ready for a black leading lady. This isn't going to, the international sales won't be as high, so we can't cast her. That's the conversations going on behind the scenes that most of America doesn't know about. So it's not like they auditioned a bunch of different actors and actresses and picked the best ones. It's like they only looked at this one pool of white talent, white straight talent. And now what we're seeing is people are going, oh, actually there's more talent than this pool that we constantly go back to as a default. And now we're giving opportunities to people that are just as talented or more talented than some of the people that we've cast. Like I'll just go through a super quick list, but Final Destination, it was set in New York. From the very beginning, I was like, New York's the most diverse city in the world. We need to have, a diverse cast if it's going to look real. Like that's all I wanted, is for it to look like a classroom that you would walk into in New York. And I had written some characters of color in my first version of it, and I think it's partially because it was shot in Canada and they cast in Canada, and maybe diversity wasn't on their radar and they didn't know New York. But all the kids ended up being white kids, and I was like, this doesn't look like New York. It just doesn't. And then they cast Tony Todd, thank God, who I adore. So that's a whole other conversation, but Candyman. And then in the second film, I actually, pitched Kimberly being African American, because there was such a huge market for it. When you look at the breakdown of who goes to see movies in all the major markets, like the numbers when New Line did the research was like 50% of the audiences were white and 50% were non-white. So there's a huge audience out there for people just looking for people who look like them on screen. But Kimberly was written to be African American, and I love AJ Cook. Like this, when I say anything, it's no diss against the people that we ended up going with, because I love our cast. But that was shot down. Tamra, same exact situation. Like we had a great, Maya, the singer Maya, who was coming hot off of Moulin Rouge, was
Really
up the role, and they're like, we can't, we won't get the numbers if we have a black lead. And again, I adore Jenna Dewan, so I'm more than happy that we picked her. But the reason Maya didn't get the role was because she was black. And there was also a Chloe in that story was a lesbian, because each character had something that they were battling with that Tamara exploits to get revenge on them. And she ended up in the script possessing her parents, and her parents tried to kill her. This was based off of something my mom said when I first told her that I was gay. And my mom came around very quickly to accept me. But the first thing she said to me was like, you might as well have stuck a knife in my heart, which is something that, you don't forget. And so I kind of use that real life experience to kind of show, what somebody can be pushed to do over something like this. And they just cut all that out, so it's been something, it's been something that I've been, fighting for so long. So that's why I'm so happy to see the progress that we've made. I'm stressed. I get stressed when people just fall back onto this whole thing. When you talk about diversity now, they think, oh, that means like picking somebody who's less qualified just to replace a straight white person. And that's not it at all. Again, it's like, just traditionally, again, there were no roles for people of color unless you were playing a stereotype or the best friend. Like they just never considered anybody for a lead, and there's always exceptions. There's always the Denzels and the Will Smiths and the Halle Berrys and the Zoe Kravitzes and the Zendayas, but those have been like, few and far between.
Certainly. Well, with the progress that has been made in terms of visibility for people of color, for the LGBTQ community, what would you say are the next steps for making the film industry more inclusive? Because as much progress as we've made, I think that, there's probably still a ways to go. So I'd be curious to see what you think the path ahead looks like.
I mean, this is going to sound like weird or hoity-toity. I mean, I think the best path forward is we have to start providing opportunities we have to get back to supporting the arts, first of all, because that's the first thing that gets cut in schools. When they're downsizing, they cut arts programs. I mean, we have to start getting more artists, women, people of color, gay people, everybody. And this includes white people. Like we need to get better arts programs that are encouraging people, and letting them know that they're welcome. Because what we don't need, is you're absolutely, it always has to be about quality at the end of the day. So I think finding the quality with, because it takes extra effort. Like you have to go out of your way. When I'm looking for African American actresses or actors for a specific role, like I just have to get the casting director, whoever that I'm talking to really dig to find it, because most agencies aren't used to putting their clients of color up for a lot of stuff because there weren't a lot of roles for them. So as roles grow, we just have to make sure that the opportunities are there, the education, system is in place so that everybody can hone their skills. Because yes, we don't want it to be a situation where, hey, we need some diversity, so let's just grab a diverse person off the street who's not as good as somebody else. Which again, because I've seen so many amazingly talented actors and actresses out there of every background, and just not getting opportunity. So there's not a lack of talent out there. It's just we have to get better at cultivating the talent, and also giving people who are normally don't think they have a chance. And this also goes, some of this prejudice ties into like poverty and access, because we're, in a lot of places in the South and the Midwest, there are a lot of rural communities that have a lot of Black people in them, but there are also a lot of rural communities that have a lot of white people in them who are really poor, and we don't do anything to kind of lift them out of their situation and give them opportunities. So I think that's a place where, the sexual orientation and race come together is that poverty issue that we have to deal with. I'm going off on a tangent. I can feel myself going off on a tangent, so I'm trying to wheel it back in. The short answer to that is we just have to keep creating more opportunities. And again, we do have to keep the focus on quality, because again, there's a difference. I always tell people there's a difference between affirmative action, which means like if you have two clients that are equally qualified and 90% of your crew is, 90% of your workforce or 95% of your workforce is white, straight people, then you get some diversity in there. And quotas is more of, we don't have enough diversity, so let's just go throw people into a slot. And there's not a lot of quotaing going on, but people kind of mix the two up because they like to say, oh, well, you're passing over less qualified straight white people, and that's not the case. It's just the assumption. Like anytime I get a job, people assume like, oh, or when I got into college, it was like, oh, it was an affirmative action. It's like, no, I earned my spot in school. So
absolutely. I think that what people oftentimes neglect to understand is that, in casting,
sorry.
Oh, no problem. In casting more diversity, it's also kind of about righting a historical wrong, because as you've sort of pointed to, for so long, we saw people of color, queer people that were perhaps more qualified or a better fit for the role, not given the role just on the basis of their status as a person of color or member of the queer community. And so, making sure that those roles go to deserving people isn't about preferential treatment. It's about, the scales have been tipped in the wrong direction for so long that we're just trying to level the playing field. And I think that people oftentimes don't see that or don't want to see that, but it really is about creating equality for all. It's not about taking from one to give to another.
Yes. I wish I just said it as succinctly as you did. That was because that's exactly what it is. It's like I call it course correction. It's like we've been on this one course where we're so used to seeing things one way that when we start adjusting, people are shocked. Like when you go to see a movie and there's a lot of people of color in it, you're not used to seeing that, so that's going to be a little unnerving to some people. But then a lot of times the takeaway is like, oh, well, they're taking something from us. And it's like, there's enough roles out there for everybody. Well, not really. I mean, the acting process is brutal. I mean, you get hundreds of people auditioning for one role, or thousands sometimes. So it's, but again, other people's success. And that's how we get to be a better society, is when we start realizing that, we should celebrate other people's successes. without also, we've got to do it in a way, in my opinion, where we're uplifting people. So again, when we're advancing diversity, it can't be, throwing shade at straight white people and being like, well, fuck you guys. You guys have had it so easy for so long. It's our turn now, because that's the exact opposite of what equality and empathy and understanding are about. And I'm seeing a lot of that from my like evangelical, conservative friends and family, where what's going on right now, like especially the hateful stuff, like the pastor that wanted to kill gay people, that was on the news, and then some Republican posted, and this isn't about Republican, it's about this one Republican posted about rounding up all the people that participated in Pride, and we're just getting a lot of hateful language, and my friends, several of my friends' responses to this have been, we've been going through this for so long because our religious liberties have been under attack. So now it's, the shoe's on the other foot, and we can't ever let that become the way that we approach diversity. I understand our anger and our frustration, because trust me, I hide it well, but I've been so just really torn by the steps back that I see, especially in states where I know people aren't like that. As far as, again, demonizing our community, we're always kind of the kicking ball, Black people and, Mexicans especially, and gay people are always kind of political kicking balls when it comes to, and it's exhausting not to be angry. But I think we need to let this course correction happen, word it in the right way. Not word it in the right way. I'm sorry. I have my phone on do not disturb, but somehow, for some reason, a friend's text keeps popping up. I don't know if it's popping up on your end.
No.
Okay. So I'm trying to, okay. So, okay, good. As long as it's not interfering, it keeps like, stop texting me.
Well, I think it's just really impressive that you've been able to channel your anger or your frustration into something positive, rather than just go and rage, and take that out on someone. You've channeled it into something positive. And, that's something that a lot of people just aren't able to do. They're not able to, be constructive, because, I think being oppressed, takes a lot out of you, and so the fact that you're still able to, in spite of being a double minority, so to speak, a person of color and an LGBTQ community member, you've probably faced a lot of adversity, but rather than let it make you bitter. You've just become a positive force for change, and I think that's pretty incredible.
I mean, I'm trying. I mean, again, thank you for that. I mean, I that's the funny thing that's been kind of going on in the last couple of years with me, is as I'm getting, as I'm getting older, the ability to let things like bounce off of me has gotten a little less. It's gotten dented. So it's like, as I'm trying to think about future projects I'm working on, it's like I don't. Because everybody's like, just tap into that rage that you've been suppressing for so long. I'm like, I don't want to, like, because yes, I could write a gay version of what was that Mike Douglas movie, Falling Down. I could write a gay version of that. I could write a gay version of Unhinged. I could write a gay version of so many revenge kind of movies, but it's just like, that's not where that doesn't do anything. That would make me feel a little better. In some, not doing it in real life, of course, but yeah, I would get to work out some anger stuff by like, yeah, I'm going to go out there and, kill homophobes and racists and stuff, and then get a cute guy at the end of it. Woohoo! But
I just don't know that that's that satisfying, though. I mean, I feel like it's kind of empty. At least for me, that wouldn't leave me feeling fulfilled. No. So I get it. I really do. The last question I have for you, Jeffrey, is can you tell us anything about the new Final Destination project that you've been reportedly attached to? Any details at all?
I'm actually not attached to it. There's so many things floating around.
I could have sworn I read that you were consulting on it. So sorry for misspeaking.
Oh, no. And I didn't mean it like that.
Okay.
I didn't mean like, how dare you? No, no. The good thing is like Craig Perry, who is like I call him the godfather of the project. He's really the producer, one of the best producers in the business. He's always kept me in the loop, with what's going on. And I did actually speak to the writers, the screenwriters. They were, as they were with Scream, which I it just is very nice. They were very curious, as they were with Wes Craven with Scream. They wanted to talk to me and just kind of get some insights into what I thought was kind of crucial to the Final Destination franchise and some ideas and stuff like that. So I had a very wonderful conversation with them. I'm really excited with the story that I can't tell you about. So it's I will say that it's not just going to be another kind of, we set up a group of people, they cheat death, and then just death gets them. And there's one wrinkle that we kind of add every movie to kind of like change it up a little bit. This one actually is very true to this. I don't even want to say true to the spirit. That makes it sound like it's getting far away. It's a true Final Destination movie, but it doesn't follow that kind of formula that we've kind of established. That's all that's
well, that's exciting. That's exciting. I think that's just the thing to do at this point. We're getting up there in the numbers, so it's like you want to see it, carve out its own path a little bit. So that's exciting to hear, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
now things could change because now the Discovery Channel bought Warner Brothers. So I know there's some shakeups going over there. So timeline wise, I don't know when. I don't know what's going on with it because people, I know that there's an excitement for it internally. It's just with everything going on as far as, businesses, I'm not sure what the timeline's going to be on it. And I know they're working on the script at this point. So
certainly. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jeffrey. It's been a true pleasure. You're an icon. And, we just, me personally, as a queer horror fan, I appreciate you. I've always looked up to you. And, so thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I appreciate that. And I feel like, I hope I didn't come across as cranky or angry today, because I'm not. It's just, there's a lot going on in the world that I'm trying to process and also trying to figure out how I can put something out there that, again, it doesn't have to be a message movie for me. I think stories about community are just as important as just showing that we're just everyday people with lives that go through things. So I'm just trying to find that right story to really tell more of our stories in the genre space. So it's an exciting time for sure. It really is.
Certainly. I don't think you came across as angry at all. And I think that if you were angry, you'd have a reason to be. You've faced a lot of adversity, and I don't think anyone could blame you for being upset about that. But the fact that you've channeled it into something positive really speaks to your character, my friend.
Well, thank you. And it's not just my one last thing. Yeah. And it's not just my adversity right now. It's just, I think with the world's kind of gone through like a, especially with the COVID thing, the world went through such a trauma that we still haven't got our heads around how, because it affected everybody. It just affected everybody. So the world's kind of in this really weird, traumatized, stressed, uncertain space. So I'm very empathetic about where everybody's coming from. I just hope that we can, as humanity, just come together and work through this in a productive, healthy way, instead of getting back into destructive kind of tearing people down and rolling back rights thousands of years and stuff like that. So
certainly.
Sorry. Sorry to preach. I didn't mean to preach.
No. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Of course.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care. Happy Pride.